started to pound Chen's cheeks out non-stop, saying, "Take it, take it." Chen was jailed for 32 years. He was 5'6" and slim. One of his parents were Chinese and the other was Japanese. Chen was an introvert who loved playing chess. He had no job and spent all his free time alone playing chess online and rapidly became one of the best players in the world. In Chen's world nothing mattered. He had no social life or friends and didn't care to have any either, as he saw friends as a distraction to improving his chess game. He never had a girlfriend or even wanted one. To Chen, women were also a distraction too. All Chen lived for was to play chess and nothing else in life mattered to him. Chen's mother thought something was seriously wrong with him because all of her friends' sons were out partying and having fun with girls, so Chen's mother got really worried, so she put Chen in rehab to try and get him help. When Chen's parents divorced, his dad moved back to Asia, so Chen's mother had to make all the important decisions alone. Chen's mother thought she was doing the right thing, but this turned out to be one of the biggest mistakes any parent could ever make, because Chen's life would suddenly take a dark turn which would ultimately lead him to doing a 32-year prison sentence. During Chen's first couple of weeks in prison, he was a model prisoner and was no problem to anyone. I think the main reason was because one of the guards saw Chen's case on the news and brought him a chessboard. The guard realized as long as Chen could play chess he wouldn't be a problem to anyone, which Chen really appreciated. Chen spent all his time in his cell playing chess. He didn't talk to other prisoners, nor did he care to want to get to know anyone. All he did every single day was play chess to improve his game. One day 2 new guys moved onto the wing called Daniel and Earl. Daniel was a 6'1" big black guy and was a known beauty bandit. He was known for busting men's cheeks in prison, and the other guy was a 6'1" big white guy weighing 400 pounds named Earl. Daniel was a hardcore beauty bandit and had turned out multiple men in prison. Daniel was the type of guy you couldn't trust because he would be your friend and invite you into his cell for a free drink, only to slip something into your drink when you were not looking. He did this to many prisoners and then turned them out. On Daniel's old wing there was this new white guy who arrived on the wing called John. John was sentenced to only 1 year in prison, so Daniel knew he needed to quickly be John's friend because time was running out. Daniel would give John free noodles and free tuna, and John would happily take them because he was broke. John's family disowned him after he went to prison, so he never really had money on his canteen. All the free food Daniel gave him was a blessing and he was very grateful for it. One day Daniel invited John into his cell to give him some more free food. The entire wing was hot, so Daniel gave John a drink, saying, "You have to stay hydrated in this weather." John, trusting Daniel, he gladly accepted the drink because he thought they were friends, but sadly this was just a trick. Daniel never had friends. He was the type of guy who only pretended to be friends with men so he could just turn them out and cream pie them. After John finished drinking the drink, he thanked Daniel and said it was delicious. As John was trying to walk out the cell, his head started to feel heavy, and that's when he passed out. The moment John fell to the ground, Daniel's smile changed into a sinister-looking smile. Daniel caught his prey and was finally ready to devour it, but couldn't do it yet, so he quickly ran out of his cell and went into John's cell. He put pillows in John's bed and put the sheet over them to make it look like John was still in his own cell so the guards wouldn't think John escaped from prison. Doing things this way, Daniel could clap John's cheeks non-stop all night long. Once Daniel was finished doing the pillows, he then closed John's cell door and rushed back into his own cell only to see John was still on the floor knocked out cold. Daniel was so excited, so he put John on the bed and then took his things out and slammed it into John. He clapped John's cheeks, and while he was doing it, John was still completely knocked out cold. Daniel continued to pound John's cheeks until sunrise. When Daniel started to see the sun, he realized he was clapping John's cheeks all night long and needed some sleep, so he went to bed. The next morning John woke up only to realize he was in someone else's bed with an arm wrapped around him. John woke up on his side with another person behind him. He knew it was a male because he could feel the guy's things touching his cheeks. The guy behind him was sleeping and snoring loud. John thought to himself, is this Daniel behind me? But then thought to himself, no way, this can't be Daniel because me and Daniel are friends, so it might be a prison guard or someone else. And that's when John jumped up off the bed only to find it was in fact Daniel in the bed sleeping. John was in total shock, thinking to himself, how could this happen, while staring at Daniel in complete shock. John was in total panic mode as he didn't even remember anything. John just thought to himself, what did Daniel do to me, and how long have I been knocked out because I don't remember anything from last night. John now realized he had cream pie all over his face and inside of him and knew he had to leave this cell immediately, so he put on his clothes and walked out the cell in complete shock. He was so sore down below he had to walk really slow because he was hurting. While John was walking, a few inmates looked at him and noticed he had cream pie on his face, so they started to laugh while he walked past. As he was walking to his cell, he saw a guard who he called over to report the incident, only for the guard to start laughing at him while saying that it's John's own fault and he should never have gone into another man's cell. The guard said, nobody forced you to go into another man's cell, so it's your own fault you got turned out in Daniel's cell. John, feeling embarrassed because other inmates could now hear his conversation with the guard, so he turned around and just walked off. As he was walking back to his cell, he could hear the guard telling other inmates John has just been turned out by Daniel, as the guard and the other inmates all laughed amongst each other. John quickly realized that talking to anyone about what happened was a pointless thing to do. So once Daniel moved on to his new wing and saw Chen for the very first time, he immediately got excited. Daniel was really into Japanese anime and loved watching Bruce Lee movies when he was younger. He had never dated a Chinese woman before, but always wanted to date one. When he was a free man, he never really had much luck with women because 99.9% of women he approached would decline his offers, saying he was too ugly and they would never date him. Daniel had a rough childhood and spent most of his life in care homes, but as he got older it changed to spending time in prison, but this time was the big one. This time he got 35 years in prison. Daniel took an honest look at his life and thought to himself, he never had a legal job in his life and he also never had luck with the women, so prison was in fact the best place for him to be. Daniel's dream was to have a nice Chinese or Japanese wife, but in the real world all the Chinese and Japanese women he tried to speak to would always reject him while laughing as they walked off. So when he saw Chen, he was on cloud 9 because in prison he didn't have to spend time trying to convince anyone to be his girlfriend. If the inmate said no and declined him, he would just take their cheeks anyways, and Daniel preferred things that way because at least now he was getting some booty, whereas when he was a free man he got nothing from women. A week into Daniel being on the new wing, he never saw Chen at all, and when he asked other inmates where Chen's cell was, he soon realized no one actually knew, and most of the inmates he asked didn't even know who Chen was because Chen didn't socialize with anyone. All Chen did was stay in his cell and play chess, and only really left his cell just to get food. A few weeks had passed and Daniel still didn't see Chen on the wing, but still couldn't stop thinking about him until one day Daniel was walking to get breakfast and saw Chen walking in front of him. He was in total shock because you actually have a better chance of seeing Bigfoot than seeing Chen. A few moments later, Chen and Daniel were both in the queue waiting to get their breakfast. Daniel tried to call Chen over to him, but he never turned around. Chen was about 6 people away from Daniel, but Daniel didn't even know Chen's name, so he just shouted, "Hey Bruce Lee! Bruce Lee!" but Chen never looked back or even responded to him. Daniel tried to call him again saying, "Oi Bruce Lee," but still nothing. The guard ended up telling Daniel to be quiet as he was making too much noise. Daniel then tapped the guy in front to pass the message on to the next guy in front until they got to the Chinese guy, so when the message finally got to Chen, he looked back to see who was calling him and could see Daniel waving at him with a friendly look on his face calling him over, but Chen thought to himself, "I don't know this guy or even care who he is," so Chen just blanked him and turned right back around and continued to wait in line for his breakfast. A few guys in the line started laughing at Daniel, saying, "How you gonna make this Chinese woman disrespect you like that?" Daniel stayed silent but was now enraged because he felt utterly disrespected by Chen and got extremely angry. Daniel said to himself, "This woman just blanked me. How could this Chinese woman reject me and disrespect me like that in front of everyone in the queue?" But he couldn't do anything here because there were people around, so he vowed to get revenge. After Chen got his breakfast, he walked right past Daniel without saying a word to him and headed back to his cell. While Daniel was still in the queue, he was hungry and wanted breakfast, but thought to himself, Chen is more important because if he doesn't catch up to Chen now, it may be months before he sees her again. So he got out of the queue and headed in the same direction as Chen, following him back to his cell. Daniel finally caught up to Chen as he was running, but as Chen looked back, Daniel stopped running because he didn't want to come off too suspicious, but Chen now saw Daniel following him. Chen now started to feel very scared, so he started to run back to his cell, and that's when Daniel chased him. Chen finally got into his cell and tried to close the door, but he was too late as Daniel put his foot in the way to stop the cell door from closing. Daniel was much stronger than Chen, so he pushed the door open with all his strength, and Chen fell backwards onto the floor and hit his back really hard, and that's when Daniel's rage came out. He said, "Bruce Lee, you have upset me. I really like you, but you disrespected me today at breakfast." Chen got off the floor while saying, "I don't know you and I don't want any trouble, so please sir, could you just leave my cell?" Daniel replied saying, I love you Bruce Lee, I want us to be friends. I want to hang out with you. Chen, feeling creeped out by Daniel saying he loves him, he replied to Daniel saying, I don't want any friends. I just want to be alone, so please could you just leave my cell? Daniel said, I will leave your cell after you give me some chan, and that's when he grabbed Chen and threw him on the bed. Chen was crying while saying to Daniel, please sir, can you just leave my cell? Chen was instantly scared while looking at Daniel's sinister look on his face as he walked over to try to clap Chen's cheeks. As Daniel got to the bed, he grabbed Chen's legs and ripped off his trousers and boxers until Chen had nothing on. He then jumped on Chen with the biggest smile on his face, saying, this is the moment I've been waiting for. This is the moment I've always wanted. I've always wanted a Chinese woman like you, Chen. Your skin is so soft, as he caressed Chen's hair and face. Daniel turned Chen over and pulled out his things, but that's when someone else came into the cell, and as Daniel turned around to see who it was, bang on his jaw. Remember the other guy who also arrived onto the wing? You know, the guy called Earl? Well, that was him. Earl was walking past and saw what was happening, so he came to Chen's rescue. After the hit, Daniel was now asleep, knocked out cold, so Earl threw him out the cell. Earl was a big 400-pound guy with a huge belly. Earl looked at Chen as he was crying, saying he tried to, and that's when Daniel said, calm down little fella, everything is fine now. He won't be able to hurt you again. Chen wiped his tears and said, thank you, I truly am thankful for your help, and that's when Daniel said, no problem, but you will need to watch yourself or booty bandits like this guy will get you. Earl offered Chen a chance to move into his cell because his cellmate had left and he had a spare bunk. Chen replied saying no because he likes his own space. Earl replied, okay, but this guy will try to take your cheeks at some point in the future, and I might not be here to save you again. Earl noticed Chen had a chessboard and said, you play chess too? Chen replied, yes, I love the game. Chen said, I've never met anyone else in prison who likes to play, so we should play. I'll grab my things and move into the cell with you. Plus I need to be safe from guys like Daniel. Earl helped Chen with his things as they both walked out the cell together, both looking at Daniel as he was still on the floor, knocked out cold. Once Chen and Earl got into his cell, Earl slammed the door and changed from being a nice guy to having the most evil look on his face. Chen offered to play chess and Earl started laughing, saying, I don't even know how to play chess. I couldn't play the game to save my life, and at that moment Chen knew he was in trouble, so as Earl walked over, Chen quickly ran past him to the door, but it was locked, so he pressed the buzzer to call the guard, and that's when Earl grabbed him and threw him on the bed. He then ripped off everything Chen had on. Earl then said, your skin is as soft as silk, and that's when a guard came over and opened the flap. Chen, feeling relieved and happy to see a guard, he shouted, help! Help me, God! Earl's trying to turn me out. Once the guard came over, the guard was now angry and upset at Chen and said, you called me all the way over here for this rubbish. I actually thought someone was fighting in this cell. He then said, look Chen, this is prison, so if your cheeks get taken it's your problem, not mine. It's your job to defend your own cheeks, not mine. The guard then said, I bet you wish you never skipped all those kung fu classes now, and that's when the guard closed the cell door flap and then walked off laughing. Earl then said, it's just me and you, baby. You are my new girlfriend, and that's when he slid his things inside of Chen. Chen screamed down the entire wing and all the other prisoners heard it, including Daniel, who was now in his cell sitting on his bed gutted because his Chinese girlfriend got away. Earl started to pound Chen's cheeks out non-stop, saying, "Take it, take it." Chen was screaming, saying, "Please stop and leave me alone, just get off me." Earl said to Chen, "That's it, scream for me baby, because I love it when you scream." Earl clapped Chen's cheeks multiple times into the early hours of the morning, leaving Chen all creamy inside. Chen was wounded after taking an extreme pounding. Earl just stayed in bed with a huge smile on his face, with one arm wrapped around Chen, looking out the window thinking to himself, "I now have a beautiful Chinese girlfriend, and the beauty was just too good." Chen tried to get up, but Earl quickly grabbed him and pulled him back in the bed, saying, "You sleep in my bed and you get up when I tell you to." Chen was feeling scared as he laid with his back next to Earl, side by side in the bed, with Earl's big belly touching his back. The next day at breakfast, Earl and Chen walked in together, and after they got breakfast, Chen sat next to Earl. Earl pulled Chen closer to him to show everyone else Chen was his woman. While in the canteen, Chen saw Daniel walk in and noticed his jaw was broken. Daniel looked at Chen and saw he was sitting with Earl, so he immediately looked away and stood in line waiting for his food. That's when Chen thought to himself, "How has my life come to this? I'm being turned out by a white guy called Earl and another man called Daniel who is in love with me and desperately wants to turn me out as well, but who else also wants to, who I don't even know. How have I let chess take over my life so much that I can't even defend myself against these prison predators? I need a change. I need to get strong so I can protect myself. I have to put the chessboard down because I still can't believe I got turned out in prison."